Hey guys, it's Jim Bounds at Co-op Motorworks and Motorhome Rehab Ranch on Patreon. And this is the part we're going to talk about your coach today that needs to suck. It's the vacuum system. Vacuum system of your motor. Vacuum system does a lot of things. It runs the heater control valves if they work. Goes cruise control if they work. I showed you about that. But the big thing, well, also it runs the transmission, because without vacuum, it doesn't know when to shift. So you need to make sure the right side of your transmission is hooked up to good solid vacuum. But what is vacuum? Vacuum is the suction that's created as the pistons come down to pull the fuel into the cylinder. Piston comes down on the stroke, pulls the fuel back, pulls it in, compresses it, bang, okay? And each time it comes down, it creates a suction to the intake manifold. And a vacuum gauge picks up that suction. Now, let me help you. It's not in pounds, it's in inches. Actually, it's inches of mercury that it sucks up a tube, and all that, be special. But it's in inches of mercury, okay? So if you have a vacuum gauge in your coach, if you don't, I would invite you to go to an auto parts store and to buy a tune-up vacuum gauge. Round with a rubber hose coming off, they're cheap. There's so many things you can tell about it. Now, if all you think, well, runs cruise control, don't have it, runs the dash AC, don't have it, well, your brakes, you need brakes, so vacuum. So vacuum is really important. Now, you don't have any vacuum until the engine fires because it's not moving, right? Okay. When you fire your engine up, if you have a vacuum gauge connected to it, if it's tuned properly, it should have about 18 inches of vacuum, okay? It's pretty critical. I mean, if you tune it up, if you fire it up and the best it's got is 16 or 14 or 10, you better see if it needs to be tuned a little bit, or if it won't go any higher, you have a vacuum issue. Because you have to start with 18 inches of vacuum. Think of it this way. 5 inches of vacuum. Carburetor needs 5 inches of vacuum to suck fuel in. If there's no suck, there's no fuel going in the engine, okay? No fuel injected, yeah. But at 5 inches of vacuum, basically, it shuts off. So you start with 18. So your gas pedal is controlling the vacuum between 18 inches and 5 inches to go. Your gas pedal is connected to the butterfly on fuel injection or carburetor. The butterfly allows more air to go in, which gives it less vacuum, closes it off, it has more vacuum. You can see that if you fire your engine up and you're reading 18 inches, rev it one time. You'll see it go down, back up, down. Rev it, down. Let go, back up, back to 18, all right? So your vacuum is an indication of how much go you got. When you reach 5 inches, basically that's it. That's as far as you can go. The carburetor can't let any more air in, and that's it. Right. One thing I wanted to talk about the vacuum and what to use it for is to diagnose a problem with your motor. Okay. Now, if your engine's running good, and I told you, you fire it up and it's in park, your air conditioner off, you should have about 18 inches of vacuum. Okay. Put your foot on the brake, put it in gear. You should have about 16, somewhere around there, 16 and a half inches of vacuum. Turn on your air conditioner. You might lose a little bit, okay? But it should be steady. That needle should be steady. If the needle's moving, what that means is every 8 cylinders, it creates the vacuum. If it creates 8, it's smooth. But if it creates 7, you'll see a drop. And you'll see it boom, boom, boom. That means that you have a cylinder dropped out, okay? Now, if you can't get 18 inches of vacuum, or say you got 18 inches of vacuum, you drive for an hour, the thing acts terrible and you look and you only have like 10 or 8. That's an intake manifold crack. Almost certain, because as the engine swells up, crack opens up, and then you lose some vacuum. That's absolutely guaranteed. So you see, this gauge is pretty important when you're going up a hill. You're going on steady. If you can stay above 10 inches, 10 or 12 inches of vacuum, you'll save gas. If you go below 10 inches of vacuum, the butterfly is open and is sucking a little more fuel. So if you're going down the road trying to save gas or trying to be frugal, keep it above 10, 12 inches of vacuum and you'll do that. So this is a very important gauge. You got a big block Chevy Super Sport with gas the way it is, you don't want to waste gas, keep your vacuum up. You can still look cool in your car and not waste gas. So a vacuum gauge can tell you a great many things, okay? Now, there are 3 or 4 vacuum ports. There's one to the brakes. It's a 3/8 port on the back. Very important. Lose brakes, bad thing. There's a home run line that should go to the transmission. There's a steel line on the passenger side valve cover on the top of the valley. And that line goes down to the transmission, a small rubber hose down on the transmission. By the way, check that little 4-inch rubber hose because it gets oil soaked and it comes loose. So look at that rubber hose on the end of that steel line. And the other side of the steel line should be a home run into the intake manifold for solid vacuum, because that thing tells the transmission when to shift. Right? Then you have a little small black capillary tube that goes up to the heater control valve. May or may not work, but hey, what the heck, hook it in. If you want to know if it's hooked up, there's a black round sphere on the right-hand side of the heater control valve under the driver hood. That's where that vacuum line should go, and from there it should go into the heater control system in the dash. So you can check that, have it, not, whatever. The only other vacuum line goes from the distributor, and it goes to a port on the front of the carburetor. Here's Mr. Carburetor. He hangs around a lot. He's a good friend of mine. Right on the front of this, there's a port right there, and you hook the distributor to that. Okay, not to manifold vacuum. Chevys do that. The adage is never have a Chevy man work on an Oldsmobile, because he'll tune it backwards. Our distributor's turned backwards from a Chevy. We have ported vacuum, not straight manifold vacuum. So if you have some questions about that, give me a call. There's a lot of things to do here. What I'm trying to do is just kind of expose you to what vacuum is and why. It's very, very important to have vacuum. In fact, having a vacuum gauge on your dash, like I said, can tell you a lot of things. Okay. All right. Well, this is kind of a short one, but we've had several people ask about vacuum, and I wanted to cover it. I wanted to get it down so I could say, hey, man, go look at the video. All right. So if you do have other questions, of course, give me a call. And you ranch hands, certainly if you're working on your coach, put me in your loop. That's what this is all about, man. We'll get this thing going, okay? All right, well, look, thanks again. Thanks for your support. If you'd like to be a ranch hand, go up the Patreon site, tells you how to do it. And thank you. See you next time.